Welcome to the Muscatine School District Board of Education meeting for Monday, April 6th. Given our current conditions in the country, certainly in the state of Iowa, this is our first live go around of an online meeting. If you have joined us, we appreciate you coming together with us. Madam Secretary, I would ask if you could do a roll call for us and determine a quorum, please.
You bet. Director Cooney.
Present.
DeBeat.
Here.
Drawbaugh.
Here.
Finn.
Here.
Mccarter.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Sure.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is to recite our pledge. I would ask everyone if you would stand and join us. We will have a flag is coming on the screen in just a minute. Perfect. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation under God.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was
That was a little bit of a round, but thank you. That worked well. There are lots of faces on the screen, so I thank everyone who was able to join us this evening. And if we have any media representatives that are with us, we appreciate that as well. We will have a couple, you may notice a few slight changes to our format of our agenda. We have omitted a couple of things that traditionally happen early on. One is a portion for citizen speak. We have done that just with technology. It was easier right now, to be very honest, to limit that. That does not mean you have full contact and access to your board members as you need them. So I would encourage you to step out to the district website. You'll find email addresses there for each board member. If there's anything that you would like to share, we all are still remaining, we are social distancing, but remaining available for questions or comments, and you're certainly welcome to call as well. The other change that you may notice is we won't have our student council joining us tonight. Things have been a little quiet in the school district from a student perspective, so we won't have that. The next thing on our agenda that we will tackle this evening is our scheduled public hearing for the certification of the FY21 budget. The first thing that we need to do is we need to open our public hearing to take any comments. And I would ask if our board secretary would do so by a roll call vote once we have a motion in place. So do I have a motion to open to a public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to a motion to open for a public hearing. All of those in favor, please signify. Oh, Lisa, I'm so sorry. I cut you off after I said you were going to do it. Roll call vote.
Okay, so you can say aye or nay. Director Cooney.
Aye.
DeBeat.
Aye.
Drawbaugh.
Aye.
Finn.
Aye.
Mccarter.
Aye.
Morgan.
Aye.
Sure.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried.
Thank you very much. We are now in a open public hearing, unique as this feels like it is. I would ask for any discussion. And Tom, is there anything specific on the budget that you want to walk us through?
So I will probably defer until we get to the action item on the agenda. What was in the board packet was the notice of public hearing for any community comment or whoever wants to comment on it. And then I'll just defer to when we get to that agenda item. So
Perfect.
we've received no written or oral comments about the budget either. So,
Okay.
President Drawbaugh?
Yes.
Just so people are aware, We did publish that the hearing would be at the board office. We do have a person at the board office to be available if someone would like to make a comment. I don't believe we have anyone if that there, but I do want everyone to know we maintained as we had published the hearing location.
Yeah, we published before any of this our meeting changed, so that's why Becky's there. So thank you, Becky.
Correct, and no one has shown up at this time.
So Becky, we do appreciate you waiting there. Thank you. In the midst of the ever-changing times, but yet to keep in the time frame of needing to handle business and take care of our budget, we did have to make a few tweaks in how we did this. So Tom, I appreciate your willingness to help, and Becky, you as well, to be sitting at 2,900 should anyone show up there. I'm going to assume we don't have any other comments, public comments on the budget. The budget, as Tom mentioned, we can talk through a little bit more. The board has also talked through the budget at least at one other meeting. So it's not the first time that we have all seen this. If there's nothing else from the community right now, I would consider a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I move.
John, would you like to second?
I will second that. That's fine. Thanks.
Perfect. So it's been moved and seconded that we will close the public hearing portion of for the budget. And before I do anything else, Lisa, I'm going to pass it to you and let you do the roll call vote, please.
You bet. Dr. Cooney,
Aye.
DeBeat,
Aye.
Draba,
Aye.
Finn,
Aye.
McCarter,
Aye.
Pegan,
Aye.
and Sure.
Aye.
All ayes, motion passed.
Great. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda, again, we'll be coming back to the public hearing, so please don't think that we're leaving that all together. But our next item under our board targets and goals is our superintendent update. We carry 3 goals under this section, and I'm just going to read them aloud, and then I'm going to pass it to our superintendent for an update. But those specific goals are: students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options. Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably, and students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. And I will add all 3 of those goals. This is probably the most unique time in my 15-some years of board work I have seen. So, Jerry, I will pass it to you.
Well, and what we're going to do when we get to agenda item 7B, we have elementary report, middle school report, and high school report on our continuous learning model that we're going to be moving into. And we'll wait till we get to that point then for those. But just a quick note: before all of this started, we had begun work looking at how to streamline registration for our parents. And right now we're looking particularly brilliant because the amount of time and energy that we have put into registration may or may not be available. And so Mike, along with Gwen Sheridan, has been working on a process so that the more intensive registration only will need to be done by new students and first-time students entering into our district. But we're working on a way to roll over a lot of that information so that parents don't have to re-register. And we're also looking at a system where building secretaries this summer will be reaching out to parents to update some information if they have any information to be updated. So I think that especially this year, not knowing if we would even be able to have the different help centers and those kind of things available, I think will be a good thing. So President Darba, I think other than that, I think I'll just wait till we get to that agenda item for us to go through that continuous learning model.
All right. So if I've not replied to my email yet that I've received, I should not be waiting. I need to get my email back and update my students' information. Is that a fair statement?
That would be great. Yes.
All right. We do have a little time to do that right now.
We do. Our goal is to try and get the registration process completed sooner. This would make everything from transportation to planning for staffing and those kind of things much easier than when we wait so late in the summer to do that. So we're going to give it the best college try. And like I said, I really appreciate the work that Mike and Gwen have done in getting that to a place where we may have that up and running.
Great. Our next agenda items, these are action possible items. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a director so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. Those items are minutes, employment recommendations, and bills and claims. What are the wishes of the board?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? And the motion carries. That takes us to approving and certifying the budget for 2020-2021 school year with a total levy rate of $13,516.45 and a budget of $85,125.33. Tom, I feel like this is all you now.
Okay, so yeah, and then it's actually 85,120,533. So
Sorry, a slight slip of the,
yeah, there was not a decimal point
comma.
there.
Did I send you into heart failure at all?
I was
No,
gonna say, we may-
You did not. I just, okay.
Sorry.
So included in your board book are some documents. I think you've had time to review them. The first document is something you've seen in February at our board work session, as well as past board budget work sessions. It is just a proposed levy rate, which was what was published in the paper, and that changed slightly from our board work session. And the reason being, obviously SSA was not determined by that February 24th meeting. It was approved at 2.3. And then we had some other pieces that go into the aid and levy, such as the piece of our instructional support levy that's funded by income surtax. That became a known number, and it wasn't at the time. And then we adjusted the management fund levy to reflect future use of our management fund for early retirement. So what is presented there on that document then will be the action item that's on the cover page. So the next document then is just a summary of our adopted budget tonight. And it's just actual 2019, a re-estimated amount for fiscal 20, and then next year's estimated budget. And then along with that are two worksheets that we use to build this budget. And then the last page is the adopted budget of what we will be approving tonight, or we will seek approval for tonight. So I don't have any other comments other than what I've stated here. So if you have any questions, I guess that's what I have for
Tom,
that.
I just like to bring attention to that the budget that we've done represents there's about $1.2 million in reductions or savings from the previous budget, and the question's been asked, well, where is that money going, or what are we going to do with that? About 75% of that would go towards the MEA settlement, the teachers settlement, and about 25, the other remaining about 25% of that will go just to balancing the budget because of our reduction in state support due to enrollment. When we had quite a bit of discussion about this at the work session, and I think it's worthwhile for the community to know we have reduced expenditures. The money that's being reduced is going to be able to provide our teachers with a modest increase, and also then our budget will be able to be balanced, and we'll be in a healthy financial situation going into the next fiscal year.
And the budget doesn't magically put itself together. So to all of you who have spent a lot of time and hours doing that, we certainly appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions regarding that proposed budget? Anything they would like to ask Tom?
Tom, what is the percentage of labor for the total budget?
So in Muscatine, that has been, it used to be around 80, I want to say 83, 84%, and it's around that 82% now. So I would say 82% of our general fund budget, excuse me. So don't get what you're seeing, on the budget summary is all funds combined, but in our general fund, it's been about 82%.
And that's pretty typical, isn't it, for businesses to have about 80 to 82%?
For public school districts, yes, that's typical.
All right.
Businesses that require a lot of its biggest capital is human capital. That you're going to see that kind of proportion.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Great question, Denny. Who else? What other questions do you have for Tom? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion on this agenda item.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the budget for 2020-2021 school year at a total rate, Tom, of $85,120,533. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion carries. Our next agenda item is to approve the 2021 labor contract with the MEA as per the negotiated settlement. And Tom or Jerry, I'm not sure who wants to give just a little bit more detail to that.
We met a week or so ago with MEA. We also did this virtually, which was another first to do a negotiation session that way. It was a very productive meeting. I think we all agreed on the concepts that we want to make sure that our teachers that we're competitive in our compensation so that we can retain and attract staff members. We also recognized right from the beginning that our settlement would be beyond what we're going to be getting in new money, which goes back to the importance of those budget savings that we had this year. So what we worked through was a 2.5% increase, and that was made possible by a couple of things. One, our insurance increase this year is really almost it's flat. There was no increase on that. But that's still, even taking that into account, we want to be able to put more on the base to make so that our base would stay competitive. And what the district in the past had done would be pay teachers for the single premium cost on the $250 deductible policy. And what we agreed with the union on is that we would pay the full cost of the $500 deductible insurance policy, which allowed us then to put $550 on the base. We've had very, very small increases on the base the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm really glad we were able to get that back to a more competitive range. So the MEA approved the contract this afternoon. They had a contract vote, and I think it's a fair settlement for both sides. I'm also going to say our teachers deserve a lot more. Teaching has never been more difficult. It has never been more draining. I wish it could be a lot more, but I think everybody, including MEA, recognizes that we have some budget limitations that we have to live with. Are there any questions about the settlement that as it's on the table?
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment that I just want to thank you, Jerry, for a positive negotiations. I've been on both sides of the table, and I think that anytime that you can have a positive outcome and both sides are in agreement and come out feeling good, that's great. And I just want to thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. And that's in part because MEA was great to work with, and Tom and Jill were just outstanding partners in this, and we were able to provide the data that was needed, and so it really did work out well this year, and I'm really glad, because like I said, this year more than any other, it's just really it's important that our teachers feel supported.
And I do agree with Denny's notion. Thank you, Jerry. And yes, I do agree that our teachers deserve the best and the most that we can give them, given the situation. So millions of thanks for, as Dennis said, for creating that positive relation between both sides and moving forward with that.
And Jerry, I know that we don't know what the future exactly is going to be like, and no, probably not monetarily can we do anything more, of course, but I want us to try to keep an eye out for things that we might be able to do to help these teachers in another fashion as we go down the road here. I'm not sure what it will mean for us to do, but I think that there is something that we can always do to help them out.
I agree.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, what are the wishes of the board then on the labor contract with MEA as presented?
I'll make the motion to approve the 2021 labor contract with the MEA as for negotiated settlement.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Lisa, are you good on a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor to approve the 2021 labor contract with MEA as per the negotiated settlement, please signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? And the motion carries. The next item we have on our agenda, similar, is to approve the 2021 salary adjustment for the classified and certified professional employees. Jerry, I'm going to pass this one back to you again.
Yeah, and again, I can't speak more highly of the work that our people do in this district. You know, no matter what comes up, we have people that are ready to get in line to make sure things get done. I just want to not only thank them for all the work they do, but really, hope that this district recognizes we have a lot of really good certified classified employees, professionals, administrators in this district. So what I'm recommending for the salary adjustment for those folks is a 2.5% increase also. Again, it fits in line with where we settled with teachers. I think it's again fair and equitable. I wish it could be more, but like I said, we are on a 101% budget guarantee. There's only so much we can do, and there's only so much we can cut. And so we're trying to do the best we can with what we have, and try to be as fair to everyone as possible. So that is my recommendation for those folks.
Okay. What are the wishes of the
think
board?
Jerry-
Oh, go ahead, John.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think the key is here fair and equitable. So thank you for approaching the two groups same way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it.
What are the wishes of the board on this item?
I'd
make a
like to
motion to
move
approve.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2021 salary adjustments for the classified and certified professional employees. Is there any further discussion?
Can I have who moved and who seconded, please?
I have Director
Aaron.
Finn made the motion, and I have Director DeBeat seconded it.
Thank you.
Two important tasks to be completed. So Jerry, I will too add my thanks, as well as to each of those groups that we're working with. It is an opportunity to work together, and I'm so pleased that we're able to do that. So I thank you to everybody involved. If there's not any other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? And the motion carries. That takes us to our discussion and information portion of our meeting. Tom, I have January and February financials listed.
Right. Okay. So I was absent last month from the board meeting, so that's why you're getting 2 months tonight. So rather than go over both of them, I'll just go to the most recent, which is the February. And again, the new format is first page is our deposit balances and our reconciliation of our bank accounts. The second page is just revenue expenditure fund balance report. One item of note on that is going to be the PEPAL, and just because of the timing of when property taxes are received, we will be getting a large deposit here in April, so I'm not concerned about why that fund balance is negative. On the expenditures to published budget report, it will just mention that these are the four functional categories that we published way back last April of 2019 for the fiscal 20 budget, and kind of broken down by fund, but also we have to pay most attention to the published budget, the second column from the right. And as you can see, we are very close to that functional category of facilities acquisition and construction. So we very well will have to have a budget amendment for the fiscal 20 because of, and really that kind of goes back to just timing of construction expenditures. You know, our fiscal years end in the middle of the calendar. So timing out construction costs can get a little tricky. And so I know I know amending a budget maybe hasn't been done in the past in Muscatine, but we always, if we don't amend, we will get a comment in our audit report, and I just assume not to have that comment if we can prevent that. And again, I can review this next month at our May board meeting, but published or amending a budget doesn't affect property taxes. It doesn't, affect the things that were, the property tax rate or anything. It just is trying to make sure we're showing that amending our budget is in line with how our expenditures are happening. So again, construction, facilities acquisition, construction, especially in Muscatine, the projects we have going on, I'm not surprised that, last year at this time, I didn't put enough into that functional category. So just letting you know that's why this report is good to keep monitoring, and we are very close, believe it or not, to the end of our fiscal year. So we need to amend that before we actually overspend that category. The next two pages are our general fund revenue and expenditure summaries. Again, we're right at that percentage compared to last year on all of our budgeted categories. The one thing I will point out is on state foundation aid, that first month where Muscatine Schools has to pay their portion towards students that don't have a resident district that go to the juvenile homes across the state of Iowa. We still get the spending authority, but the state of Iowa takes away the cash to give to those entities. So our state aid was reduced by $118,884 from February through June. So what does that mean? It doesn't really mean we have to adjust our budget. Again, we have the authority to spend what the state said we were going to get, but where does that cash come from? It comes from our cash reserves that we have in the bank. So no worries, but I just always think it's important to point out to the board when those things happen. And so that happens starting in February through our final state aid payment in June. That's on the revenue side, which is the state foundation aid. The first one under state sources, 27.3 million is our new budget amount for state aid. But overall, I would say, we're very similar. Again, we're in February. There's just a quarter and 1 month left in the fiscal year. So I believe we're right where we should be in our general fund revenue and expenditures. So I have no other comments, Tammy. So.
Does anybody have any questions for Tom?
I have one. This is Aaron. Tom, you mentioned a deposit coming. You mentioned a deposit coming in April from property taxes, but I know property taxes were extended to be paid without penalty. Is that going to impact us at all?
It might, because I just I looked at we got the notice from the county here a couple days ago, and so I just was looking at the capital projects. I wasn't looking at the overall in the general fund and the management fund, but in the capital projects, it is down a couple $100,000. But again, I don't know what the reason could be. So but you're right, Aaron, that is a good point. And, maybe most businesses or people have their property taxes paid already. I don't know. It just happened, I guess.
So if there is a shortfall or it's delayed at least a quarter, are we still okay? Do we still have the liquidity to pay those?
For capital projects, that is one thing I'm looking at right now, because clearly not only property taxes, but SAVE or sales tax revenue is going to be affected for our district. And although we lag about 2 months behind in sales tax collections, I don't anticipate the money we get here this month. What we get in, let's see, we're in April. The April deposit is really February sales tax. So, this all kind of hit in March. So, I've gotten no notice from the state of Iowa, from the Department of Revenue about, sales tax revenue, because when they give us our allocations for the year, it's always like, I want to say 95% of the estimated revenue. But we're like I said, we're at the end of getting that sales tax revenue for the fiscal year. I imagine next fiscal year it's going to be affected a lot more. So we're still, again, haven't received any word from the state about that. So I will make sure and let you guys know that when we do hear something. So.
Yeah. Do you think we'll know something by the next board meeting, or you think it's going to take longer than that?
I to be honest, I really don't know. I mean,
I think it comes down a little bit too, is the state very well may have some cash flow things, and where and how they're going to use their rainy day monies and how that's going to all work on some things. I think over the next 6 months will be something that we're going to have to really keep an eye on.
But yeah, obviously for capital projects, we're in a couple big ones. We're at the end of a couple big ones. So we definitely are going to take a look at that here before the next board meeting. So.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
What are the questions for Tom? All right. Tom, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So our next discussion and information item is our continuous learning model. And Jerry, I think you have a team to help you with this tonight as well.
Again, I would say the district is lucky that we've had a team working on this for a while. To bring everybody up to speed on this, when the governor made the decision to continue closures through April, which I think was a good decision. We were given 3 options. The first option is you could do nothing, and in which case you would be responsible for making up days missed. Second option is to provide a continuous learning model that's voluntary, and then you would not have to make up missed days. Or you could do a model that required instruction, which you would be taking attendance, grading, issuing credit on. Presented with those, the first one made no sense to do nothing. The third one about required, I had just grave concern if we would be able to make sure that we could provide access to everyone, that we had staff trained to do that kind of model. And I was also concerned about if we would have, with the required attendance and credit given, if we might not be creating a large pool of students that in the fall would almost be at a spot of retention. So listening to what our folks we're talking about, looking at what other districts were looking at doing, we felt the continuous learning model made the most sense. I'm going to say this before I turn it over to our team that have been working on this. Next fall, and the state did give us a waiver for state testing this year, but we need to have school boards, administrators start talking to the state, which needs to start talking to the federal government about a waiver for next year. We're going to go in, if we don't go back to school until next fall, if we don't reopen in May, we're going to have a lot of kids that are going to have had gaps increased for lots of different reasons. And we're going to need to take a look at that first quarter differently. They're going to need to look at how you're going to modify your curriculum, how are you going to adjust things. Next year is going to be a period of just making sure that we are ready for kids, not necessarily kids are ready for the grade that they're going into. And the other thing that I think people need to keep in mind is that the science folks certainly talk about this. There could be a reappearance in the fall that could cause interruptions again until there's a vaccine. So I think there's lots of things that we need to keep looking at this. We are moving forward with our staff. Our professional staff will go through Google Classroom training, so that in the future we will be able to hopefully have a stronger response with online learning. We're also going to have most of our paraprofessionals go through that training so that they'll be able to assist and do some things. So I think the good news is that we've been able to have some time to do some of these things. So I think moving forward, there's still a lot of questions. If the governor said she'd give us 2-week notice before we would go back, which is going to be important from just a standpoint of cleaning kitchens and ordering food and all those kind of things. But I would be surprised. I really would be surprised if we go back this year. That's just looking at where other states are at and where the peak is supposed to happen here in Iowa. But we'll know more in a week or so when the governor gives us the next set of directions. So with that, we have 4 people that have been doing a lot of work on this. Joelle McConaughey has been helping lead the elementary principals through this process and working with teachers and working with this. Chris Nienhaus and Cory Spies have been working with the middle school folks and Terry Hoganson with the high school. And we still have another week where they're working on the roughing, fine tuning the rough edges. But we wanted to share with you where we're at. So Joelle, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I want to just tip my hat to all the work that you guys have been doing.
All right. Thanks for letting me present. I actually am going to go into present mode just so I can kind of show you a little bit here what we've been working on. So can you see that? Anything yet?
No.
All right. Says I'm presenting. So this was like my guy.
And for all of those folks at home, we actually practiced this today.
Switch your tab.
I think I have to go out of it.
You had it.
You
just need to. We were seeing your screen. You just need to change the tab down.
Oh, got ya.
There you go.
All right. All righty. So what I'll do is just kind of take you through a little bit where we started. So this is a draft, and this first slide, I'm going to take you, Scott, I take no credit for this. This is all Scott Comstock's work. So Scott, if you want to jump in, go ahead. But Scott has graciously put together a site on our district website, and then also on all of the elementary, middle, and high school sites where parents can access resources for each level. So here is an example. When parents will go to this site, or students, they'll be able to see a drop down for preschool, elementary, middle, and high school. And once they go down on this, you can open up a grade level, for example, and it will show you all of the different resources that are available for ELA and math. And then we will also be posting daily lessons for ELA and math. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what those lessons will look like. Okay, so when we very first started to look at this, one of the things that we know is that the attention span of students is not very long when you're in a classroom, let alone when you're trying to do online learning. And I've learned that myself with dogs and people running around. It's a lot harder to sustain attention. So we really looked at this model for when we worked with grade levels and departments at the elementary level. So I'm going to just talk a little bit. What we ended up doing at the elementary level is each principal took a grade level and a department to oversee. And so before we met with those grade levels and departments, we worked with our instructional coaches and the administrators to come up with a system that would not be overwhelming to teachers and also not overwhelming to parents who are trying to do a lot of different things from home with their kids. And so we came up with a pretty simple template for both ELA and math that we could push out to teachers for putting these lessons together. And so we developed a Monday through Friday mini lesson that teachers would present. And we would just start out with an I can statement. And then this would be an example of what a reading ELA lesson might look like for the week. There is a sample video there if you wanted to go in and look at that, but I'll not show that at this time. But we did also the same kind of format for math. And so after we set these templates up together with our coaches and the administrators, we then asked our coaches to put together a lesson, what a lesson might look like for a week. And then we met in our grade levels today, actually, and the coaches, we shared those lessons. We walked teachers through the templates. We shared how you use Google to record yourself with your lesson. We asked teachers to sign up for 1 week of either teaching ELA or math. And then during that time that they would be putting together their lessons, we would be available for support, as well as our tech department has been amazing as well in helping our teachers. We also are going to meet with them each week because we know as we start this, it's not going to be perfect and we'll probably have to make some revisions along the way. But we felt like if we met each week with our grade levels and departments, we could offer online support. The other reason that we chose to meet in grade levels and departments is because we wanted to make sure that regardless of the school that kids attended, that all third graders in our district or all second graders or sixth graders, they were all getting the same push out for lessons, so that it didn't look different, where one school might be doing a lot of different things and some schools maybe not as much. We really wanted to be able to streamline that for our parents. The other reason we decided to meet in grade levels and push out lessons this way is because we also thought that this would help with if parents had questions from home or students, or when we move into creating some resources that wouldn't be online for kids, we wanted to make sure that we could streamline that as well and help support both our kids and teachers. If you weren't a classroom teacher, so art, music, PE, band, orchestra, GT, special ed, EL, and our guidance counselors, we also meet with them weekly. And in working with these groups of teachers, we met with them also today, and we were able to get a lot of different ideas and feedback from the departments about how they could support students. And some of the supports that these groups of teachers will be providing might look like some online ideas and lessons that or family activities that parents could do at home with kids, or it could also be just simply resources. So for example, the guidance counselors, I can kind of talk about them. They are putting together like ideas that families can do on calendars to just promote a lot of family engagement and social emotional learning. They're putting together sites that parents might be able to use if they're feeling some stress. And so they have been working not only at the elementary level, but all the way from kindergarten through senior for counselors who serve seniors together to provide lots of different ideas and support for families at home. So they've been working together as a large group as well. But those are just some examples of what some of the non-classroom teachers are providing. The last thing is we have asked all teachers in our district to do a minimum of 5 hours per week of student and family connections. And some of those, all of our actually teachers have access to students through Class Dojo, emails, phone calls, or other forms of contact. Principals are working with their schools to determine what that specifically looks like. But we also want to give teachers some flexibility in ways they would like to connect and work with our families. And so you've already probably been seeing some of these things, but teachers are also beyond those 5 hours of connection, doing parades, we're reading to kids. Teachers have been sending letters to students. We want to make sure that we continue to provide supports for families around food, and those basic necessities that we know will continue to get worse for some of our families. And then again, we're just meeting weekly with our staff to brainstorm and work on what these things can look like. And we will adjust as we move through these next few weeks of working with them. So that is all I have to show. So I guess if there are any questions.
If not, I'll go ahead and jump in with the middle school piece. Joelle has shared a great deal of our framework, and it looks very similar at the middle level. And so Chris and I have been very intentional about bringing our middle schools together and involving our departments at both buildings in meetings together to plan for this to roll out next Monday. And I would like to say, I am super impressed at the flexibility and dedication of the teachers across this district and their willingness to kind of think outside the box and take into consideration all the things that seem, I think, sometimes insurmountable. And we've got students that may not necessarily have the online access, and they're determining how to best go about serving the needs of those students and families. They're communicating with kids. I'm receiving great feedback from parents and from students. And so at the middle level, and Joelle shared the website, and I'd be happy to put that back up if you'd like me to, but the middle school is linked on that same website, and we will have a repository there of content lessons, again, updated weekly for students and families to take a look at. We're continuing with the same office hour expectations for middle school staff with flexibility there for teachers to touch base with students, and it is expected that they're touching base with kids weekly. One of the other things that maybe we haven't talked about is what are we doing for those families that aren't able to access our online resources. We have been doing our school messengers to families where we're pretty confident we've got a good success rate with our email. In that email, we're communicating to families and providing a number that they can text for paper resources that we're going to work to provide families. And we've got a system in place. We're hearing back from families already that are asking for that resource. And we're making a plan going forward on how to do that. Chris, go ahead and jump in here if there's anything that.
Yeah, I think that obviously we understand that not all of our students have access. And so that's kind of the biggest challenge. So initially, I think what we decided is we were going to try to kind of do some online things and some paper and pencil things. But we also thought we don't really know how many families are going to access what we give out. So what we decided to do, at least at the middle school, is come up with like Cory was saying, like a system where parents, if they do want a paper and pencil, they request it. It'll go to our guidance counselors. Our guidance counselors will get in touch with those teachers. The teachers then will run a packet of information for those families for that week. And then we will get it delivered to the families or have them pick it up where we just, take it outside and give it to them in their car or something like that. So there is going to be access to paper and pencil materials through that method.
I would just throw out there that the paper pencil option with the new requirements that the governor talked about today, those kind of things all become more difficult.
Yeah.
And that has been something we've been struggling with. And but I really appreciate the fact that everyone is trying to work around that problem.
And to clarify with that, we're about providing students with feedback on the work that they're doing and being available to answer questions. But I think as much as we can, we're going to limit the paper coming back into the buildings. So calls, to check in on students, emails if they have questions about that work. But yeah, taking those safety precautions into consideration, we're not looking to collect that paper back from students. We want to provide it to them and walk them through what they need to do to be successful with it.
Cory,
any questions?
Yeah, Cory, you talked a little bit about getting feedback from parents or feedback from kids, or giving feedback to parents, giving feedback to kids. What's that process look like for a parent? Because we know that teaching's not easy. And a lot of times I think as professionals, we forget that it's not easy. And I really don't want to overwhelm parents with all the stress that they have going on in their household.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what that kind of looked like. If you could kind of walk me through if I'm a parent and I feel a little bit overwhelmed, or how do I communicate back to you like, hey, I just don't know what I'm doing here?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. I think what we're trying to do is make sure that parents understand that they can email teachers anytime. They can email administration anytime. A lot of teachers are holding specific office hours to reply back on the daily. And so that might, depending on the teacher, might be between 10 and 11:30 in the morning on a particular weekday. So those will be posted on that website. And if there's a question, we'll ask teachers to get back in touch with a student to help support them through that work. I think you bring out a good point as we go into week 3 of this, increased diagnoses. We have, supply shortages still that many in our community are facing. So we know that we don't want to make this more difficult. We just want to feel like we're supporting kids and families through this time.
Thanks, Cory.
Cory?
Thanks for what everybody's done, actually. Thank you.
Cory, along with that question, it's almost like I try to think about if I was a parent that all of a sudden this information is coming through to us through the teachers and everything. But of course, as you say, they want to understand somewhat of it, not being teachers themselves. Is there a process that allows that kind of like how do I want to say it? For dummies, where you take and allow a written or oral communication to the parents so they know what this process is supposed to be like for them. You know what I'm saying? So we're taking it to that simplicity to help them to understand how they at home are going to be helping their kids.
Yeah, absolutely, Karen. That's a great point. One of the things that we've had great success with in school, fortunately, that's a piece that's in place is our Google Classrooms. So this idea of kids having access to online content, being able to interact in the same type of environment that we're holding these meetings as adults, we see a lot of that being very successful for kids. So it may not be a matter of they have to wait to get an email back or wait to get support. Some teachers will probably be meeting with their classes in this environment similar to this. Scott has done a lot of work in communicating to teachers about how to utilize Google Hangouts for that purpose.
And I would add that, the teachers are trying to do their best at making the content readily available to students where it doesn't take a lot of direction. And so it's really, I think what it comes down to is getting the parents to get their kids to do it. That's what we need to be communicating. Like, this is important, and we need you to, help your child to get on and do these things. And then, like Cory said, the access then to the teacher is, at the secondary level, we have office hour, types of situations where students have direct access to their teacher for that 5 hours a week. And all those hours and times are posted on the middle school site for them to do.
Understood. Thank you.
I may have missed it, but are the students, let's say middle school, high school, will they get individual emails describing this, or are the parents just getting this information?
Yeah, the communication hasn't come out yet. Sorry, Cory. But basically we'll send it out to everybody when it gets released. So the teachers are still working on it. So it's kind of a work in progress right now. It's not completed, but there'll be a detailed information sheet that comes out to parents and students about how to access the information and how to proceed forward.
Also, another question I may have here has to do with, do we have any idea how many kids that do not have access to the internet itself? They may have computers, but for some reason or other, they do not have that access. Is there a way to make sure that there is some sites available around town or something that, I know sounds crazy, but or whatever,
MPW has been working at trying to develop some hotspots, and they're working on creating one at the Jefferson School, so that area, probably reaching out into that parking lot area, and that area would be a hotspot that they could jump on MPW's area. We probably, there are a lot of people that have cell phones, which in turn can become a hotspot for folks to access the internet. We don't have great information about who has access or doesn't have access. When we look at the messaging we use for no schools, we have about 10,000 messages that go out. So there's a pretty good blanket of coverage of folks getting some sort of messaging. So that, and again, we don't have great data because we have some folks that they move a lot. They don't have a necessarily a permanent address. So we know that fits into that. But that is one of the drawbacks to when you say, well, if you do a required online learning, it would be very difficult to reach some of our people out in the country. It would be difficult to reach even some people, some places use these buses with hotspots on them, but those have a limited amount of data and they also have limited sort of range. And so if they would even get to some of our neighborhoods and some apartments would be questionable. So those are all things that that we are not going to be able to solve this time around. But I think it is worth the time as the district moves forward through this and looking at other possible interruptions that may come up in the and how we may want to use online learning. How would we address those things? Because unfortunately, the inequity in internet coverage is just one of the inequities. We have food inequities, we have housing inequities, we have income. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and which shows just how important it is that we have schools that are safe places and well-resourced places for kids to come to, because I don't think we can ensure that every student will have equitable access to online learning. And anybody that says they have that is either in a very affluent area or I think they're lying.
Understood. Perhaps some way, I'm not saying a particular agency or whatever, but down the road, that might be something they could help us out with. Because yes, I do understand this is an ongoing process, and there's no way that you would have a good data right now for me, but I'm just curious as to where we're at with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And I think moving forward, those will be, as we talk more about online learning, electronic learning, I think we need to look at, are we going to be in a situation in our community to really make, how viable is that going to be? Those are all really good questions, Karen.
All right, thank you.
The library is offering the internet access to their broadband in the parking lot or whatever. And so I don't know if there's a way we could get that information out as well as, so that way that people that can, sit there with their computer or take their phone in that area.
Yeah, I think too, we have to be cognizant of the governor's new order today. How much we want people congregating and where.
Right.
And so that was one of the problems we had when we looked at using the bus as a hotspot is, they work best if you can get on the bus. Well, that's kind of off the table. The next thing, they work really good if you can be sitting outside the bus, and there again, you're doing the not doing the social distancing. So those are really all good points, and I think moving forward we will have a better response. I just really and we'll hear from Terry, but I'm just really been impressed with the level of work that our principals and teachers are doing on this to come up with this. I think they started last Monday. Is a phenomenal. So. John?
One thing I would like to say, Jerry and everybody, first of all, I would like to thank everybody, really. I am a board member, but as a parent, for example, we are receiving a lot of communications, whether some of them are needing to go on the net to find out that, but there are a lot of other ways that for those who don't have the internet or access to internet still can receive this information and get this data too. So I think as a district, principals, teachers are trying their best again to reach out to almost every student, whether via internet, via text message, or any other media that they can use to reach out to the students. There's no way we can be 100% covering every or assuring every students to have internet. There's no way, even without this situation, it's not going to happen. But I just want to mention that many thanks to teachers and principals that are doing this hard work in this hard time, during this hard time, to reach out to as many students as we can. For example, one of my favorite times during the week is when I sit down with my kids and listen to whoever that teacher from McKinley reading that story, to whoever the students who will be attending that. It's amazing family time to get together and listen again to a story, a teacher reading a story, or the principal reading the story, and so that communication is there via many ways, not necessarily just the internet, and we can get that over our phones, smartphones, and so on. I just want to mention that too.
Very good. And we still have Terry Hoganson to hear from out there about the high school.
I'm
there we go. I didn't want you to think we forgot you, Terry.
Hey, all the hard questions were going to Cory and Chris and stuff, so I'm really happy about that. That's good. We're under the same form. I think one of the things the district has been doing very well is setting up consistency on what expectations are. So our teachers all understand that we're under the same kind of guidelines, setting up office hours, setting up times to be approachable and available for our student body. Again, like Jerry mentioned, basically conceptually laying this out for staff happened about a week ago. And since that time, we've had a lot of people respond, start putting things together, assembling, having great conversations, all about what they can do to help provide our student body with what it needs. Alongside that, I've also been in conversation with MCC and with concurrent classes and the different things that are going on there, because there's complexities that go along with that, again, and trying to make sure that we're providing continuing educational experiences along the way for all of the kids, and try and meet all of those needs. And it's a challenge, but it's amazing how many people are stepping up to that. One of the things I can show you is kind of the format. I'm going to go in to present mode and show you just what the module kind of format we have set up behind the scenes that we will be attaching to the district website will look like. And we'll see how this works. Not well at this point.
Works like mine did, Terry.
All right, I am feeling your pain, Joelle. So let's try and see if I can do this one more time. And
I told the teachers today when I met with the grade level teachers, I was, telling them this, and I said, you know what, this is all part of our learning process, right? It's never going to be perfect.
Terry, if you want, I can try to grab it and present it.
would you do that? That would be very gracious. I'd appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Let me get it here.
Again, while that's coming up, I guess I can say that again, we've established the office hours, trying to make sure that all staff are available for 5 hours a week, and that the modules be developed and be kind of an ongoing delivery model.
And that's all content areas, correct, Terry?
Yes, all content areas are engaged in this.
Can you guys see it?
Yes.
So on that, the course, the teacher and contact hours, the office hours, and is in the high school, each content has multitude of areas that it covers. Like the science isn't just one science, it's multiple sciences and so on. And then when they can be contacted, and then all the modules that already have been developed and resources that we're making available that people can attach to, or students after the 13th will be able to go on, click on and get their lesson that can kind of help catch them up and review important core information, as well as lay out some information to kind of get them prepared for what they could be learning. All of this thing, just so it's clear, is not going to be graded. It's something that we will be providing feedback for. If a student is making up work and it will benefit them, then it can be scored or graded in to help benefit them, but nothing that a student turns in can be used in any way negatively to influence their current grade. So are there any questions or anything that you'd have on my end?
Terry, I'm assuming, and this goes for the middle schools and elementary, these will be left up all summer as well.
Yes.
So as kids, maybe want to do some reviewing or getting ready for school, that they'll have access to this. They may not necessarily have access to teachers at that point, but they'd have access to the modules.
That's accurate.
Jerry said something pretty critical there. If kids want to catch up, so that's leaving it up.
Father of 4, so I of the 4, I probably would have had one that would have been asking, when do I get my access, and the other ones might have been saying, access? What are you talking about? So I know what what that can be like.
Yeah. So what is our expectation overall for this? I mean, in terms of participation, and what does good look like? What does great look like? And kind of.
Well, I think it'd be great if we had more than 50% participation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be great. Again, since we're not grading or giving credit for these modules, the expectation that we have is that we want to make sure kids are having a chance to review content that they've already learned, so they don't lose that. There's an opportunity for some additional new concepts, but what we don't want to do is be in a position where we're teaching so many new concepts without appropriate feedback that kids have wrong learning that they're going forward in. But probably the most important thing is that they stay engaged in schooling. We can catch up kids in content, But what's going to be really difficult is if we have students that have been out of school for 6 months and have not been engaged in the discipline of schooling. And so more than anything, and this is what I've been telling my kids concerning our grandkids, is that don't be too wound up about the content, but be really wound up about keeping kids on schedules. Be really wound up about making sure they're doing some constructive activities that enhance learning behaviors. Like I said, the content things we can address, we can modify next fall. But what we don't want to do is have kids lose their learning behaviors. And so the more engagement we have with good, positive, schooling kind of activities, it will be good for kids. It will make their re-entry into school easier, and will make the new learning that will need to occur next fall, I think, it will enhance that.
Jerry,
yeah, I get that. So if it's just half, though, what about the other half? I mean, if 50% is what we expect to be good or successful, I mean, doesn't that just make a greater gap?
Yeah, absolutely.
For the 50% that don't. So, I mean, how do you reconcile that then when school does start back up?
I think that, Aaron, and that's my biggest concern, that that I see the kids that have a lot of parent support right now are doing all kinds of stuff. They're engaged with things, they're doing things, they're having conversations. This is to me, what this does is accelerate the gap that gets created in summer anyway. And what you have is the kids that have additional resources continue to grow. The kids without resources tend to stay put. We're going to have to recognize we're going to have that problem next fall for lots of different reasons, and probably some that are out of our control. That's why I say next fall, that first quarter is going to have to look different than any quarter we've ever done. Because what you're really going to have to do is somehow say, this first quarter is going to need to be a little bit of an extension of the last fourth quarter, as well as moving kids into what they're going to need so they could move into a second quarter. It's going to, I think at our last meeting, Mike had mentioned we really need to make sure we identify those things that the power standards kids absolutely need to know. That's going to be really critical in the fall. Because if you cannot expect you're going to have 75 or 80% of your kids coming into fourth grade ready for fourth grade.
Jerry, I know that everything you said is right on the money, as in what I see also by this fall, but a little along the lines of what Aaron was talking about is those folks, or I should say those kids that, yes, you said may have not been in school for the last, few months or whatever. Are we doing anything to help reach out to those folks too, to some of those other type of categories?
Can I jump in? I hear what both of you are saying, and I do agree with Jerry, but I do want to also say that the classroom teachers are our best connections with kids, and the classroom teachers are reaching out to every single child in their classroom. So I really do want to stress that we are doing that. On top of that, I've been meeting with counselors, and those counselors were working specifically with families and students who had different barriers going on in their life. And so those counselors are also being a second reach out to those families and kids. Also, I know at the elementary level, we're working with all of our counselors to identify kids that it's that other 50% that Dr. Reevy is talking about. I think that we have to be cognizant. I know I've been talking with families, and right now their level of stress is around basic needs. They're worried about food. They're worried about if you look at the child abuse rate is going to go way up, their stress levels high. So I think we have to really balance that nurture approach with that learning approach with our families. But I do want you to know that across the board, elementary, middle school, and high school, counselors are reaching out to our at-risk families, and even I think more than that, our teachers are reaching out. And if we can't get a hold of families or we can't connect with them, they know to let administrators know, and we will help support that in contacting other people. So I do want you to know, like, that we're just not saying, oh, here's some online things you can do, and if you don't access it, sorry. I mean, we are reaching out to all of our families.
Thank you. Joelle, if I could.
That's
no,
one
I
of
was
the
just going to
things
jump in and add on to that, at the middle school level, we've made that a priority as well. We recognize that relationship that teachers and kids have is going to be critical during this point. So reaching out and then working with the resource navigators, I would just let you know that they are also still very busy and working to coordinate telehealth sessions for some of our students who are currently receiving or were receiving before the break services in the buildings. We're working with providers to coordinate those if they're able to continue to do that over a telehealth model. So,
and our oh, sorry, Cory, I was going to say the nurses have also, I mean, they've kind of all remained, you know, a good open communication line for helping support them. I know today I was on with the navigator, the nurse, the teacher. So, yeah.
You know, I think one of the things that I hope people recognize coming out of this is how many social services our nation depends schools to provide.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, when we're not in operation, how are we going to feed all these people? How are we going to provide mental health supports to all these people? How are we going to provide health services to all these people? How are we, you know, everything, so many services to go to our kids comes through schools. And the other thing that I hope people recognize is that this really shows the disparity of families in poverty and the discrepancies of things that for families in poverty. And it really lays it bare. And, you know, we've been talking about it, and I know this board has been very cognizant of it, but the greater community, the state, the nation really needs to take a look at this, because I think all of our weaknesses are exposed in a time like this.
Yeah, and I didn't want to, Joelle, I appreciate everything you said, and I know our staff's going to go above and beyond 150% more than to contact everyone and try and make this work. So, but is it still 50% though? And, you know, we're still not going to get to that other 50, or do you think it's 80? All I'm saying is the unintended consequences of this is that gap gets wider, and we have a real difficult time bringing everyone together at this next school year. That no matter, and I applaud all the efforts and everything that's going on, but are we really looking at what the sort of midterm consequences of this are relative to trying to bring all those students then back together and try and catch certain ones up and other ones are further ahead? Like, that's where I'm really trying to put the question.
And I completely agree with you, which is, if I were governor, which thank goodness I'm not, I would really have looked at, let's call this the summer break right now, and school starts July 15th or July 10th or something like that, and extend the year out and get kids back into school sooner. Because what we're doing to do, our folks are doing lots and lots of work. At this point, the governor could say, go back May 1st, and we've done all this for 2 weeks. And so, again, I know there's lots of issues along with that, but the best thing that could happen to ease that disparity is if they allow us to start the year earlier, not necessarily adding more days. We could add some breaks through that to take into account teacher days and those things. But the sooner we could get kids back into a building, we'll be able to better address the disparity issue.
Yeah.
But other than,
and we can't make that call ourselves, right? Yeah, and we can't make that call ourselves to do something like that as a district, right?
You know, right now we can't, because the state has a date for school starting.
Okay.
And I hope whenever I can, I raise that issue. I can't say there's any parades being formed to support it, but I really think at the end of the day, that would be the best solution to this mess than trying to cobble together a lot of different things that maybe will only affect 50% of the kids. can we figure out a way to get kids back into school sooner?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jerry.
That's my my platform if I run for governor.
Well, the only other thing I wanted, you said earlier about the platform is, I think we should test people, like you said, waive standardized testing, but don't we want to know where they're at? Isn't testing a way to gauge a student's progress and understanding? Like, and I'm not saying we have to do it for rules and funding and all that, but to really get an understanding of where the kids are.
A standardized test probably would not be a good test to do that. There are assessments that would be better.
Sure.
Because, and I completely agree with you. And Aaron, I think that is another thing that we're going to have to take a look at. When those kids show up, whatever that first day of school is, we're going to have some sort of classroom assessments, district assessments that get a handle on where kids are at. Because everybody it's going to be kind of the wild, wild west.
Dr. Reby, I think that's why I think it's so important to have the power standards identified, because those tests should probably be geared towards those power standards. If we really think that those standards are important for kids to be able to move through academically or to be successful in life, we have to know what those power standards are. And that's summer work that the teachers could be doing, is saying, okay, we know what these power standards are. How are we going to evaluate if a kid knows it or doesn't know it?
And probably for the first quarter, there needs to be a hybrid of the fourth quarter power standards and the first quarter power standards, because we're at the end of the day, we're still going to be short a quarter. And we're going to have to figure out, how do we make that up?
Agree with you 100%.
Jerry, now, when you say that, is that something that we are able to make our own determination? Or is that something that has to be through different hours?
I'm not saying this to be snarky. We cannot wait for the state to help us on that one. We're going to have to take that one and manage. And I think our people will. I think our staff, our teachers, principals, I think we'll be able to get there. But and we've already started having those conversations about what is fall going to look like.
I think one of the elephants in the room, and maybe a stressor for families and a stressor for teachers, is how do we determine that kid that's going to move on to the next grade level, or even at the high school level, the kid that earns credits, and for the seniors, that kid that graduates.
Right.
I think that that's something, maybe we're jumping the gun, but I'm assuming those talks are already happening about. I tend to agree with you, Dr. Reby, that this is probably the end of the year. We're just biding our time till the governor says, yep, we're done. So looking at the models, I think it's going to be the end of the year, but I'm assuming those talks are already taking place.
Yeah, and the state has said districts need to have wide latitude in dealing with seniors. The good news, if there's a quarter that seniors are going to miss, the fourth quarter is probably the best one for them to miss. And so I think for the kids in the AP courses and those, I think we'll be able to get them some additional help for them with what we're doing. But I think the reality of it is seniors, the last quarter, it's not the most productive quarter of their high school career. So if there's a time when if we were going to miss, this is probably the best one. Thank goodness it wasn't the second.
Jerry, I don't know if I read this properly or not, but I remember seeing something about utilizing the grades from the first half of the year rather than up until now or something, to show what those grades would be for those kids graduating.
Yeah, what we will look at is we'll take a look at performance up to the last day we had school. And so we're working on some protocols with that. Again, for seniors, we're going to make sure that they have the benefit of the doubt. And the other side of this, colleges are going to have to start having these conversations, because this isn't just Muscatine kids coming in this situation. Just about every kid in the United States is going to be coming in this way. And there's going to have to be some conversation at the college level also. It may have to look a little bit different. The good news, it is nationwide. Everybody's kind of in the same boat. Somebody asked me the other day, said, well, I feel bad. I said, I'm really worried. I'm afraid my kid's going to be behind. And I said, but behind who? I mean, just about everybody in the country and almost the world is in the same spot. So it's just one of those times that's going to go through. Everybody's going to talk about that 1920 school year and how things just were different. But I have great hope that we'll be able to overcome those discrepancies that kids have been having. So, but it will have to be done with effort.
I agree with you, Jerry, because again, it's a worldwide issue. It's not just here in Iowa or in Muscatine. Some states already ended their schools. I know, for example, Arizona, one of the states that said, no, just no school till August, end of August. At least our students here in our district are getting some to keep them connected to the learning process and so on, up until obviously our governor make any kind of future decisions. But yeah, it's even at the college level, we are discussing that almost on a daily basis now. The 75% rule for graduation versus a pass-fail instead of ABC grades. I mean, too many models are floating around right now, and it's not just a one institution issue, it's a worldwide issue now that everybody's talking about.
Any other questions for our presenters? Thank you, all of you for presenting this evening on these models that you are working on. As I look backwards on our calendar and think where we were a month ago and where we were 3 weeks ago and where we were 2 weeks ago, our staff, much like many in our country, has been asked to please figure out how to do exactly what you're doing, but in a totally different way. And good luck. Let us know what you need. And you all have stepped up in an amazing way, and we so appreciate that. And I know it's not easy for families. Some of us went from households of 2 to suddenly households of 4, and we're trying to figure out balancing extra people and extra meals and who needs quiet time when, and it's not easy. So to the staff who has worked so diligently on this, thank you so much for what will come, and know that your board supports your work, and we're anxious to know what we can do for you next in this manner. And I will as much as I can, parade and encourage, and that we have lots more of learners that are choosing to tune in to see what's happening as well. So, anything else on the continuous learning model?
You know, I just do want to do another shout out to Lisa Bunn, who has been above and beyond in making sure communications get out to people and people staying in contact with folks and being the hub of a lot of these things. And just really appreciate all the work she's doing. And I know Scott Comstock has been working tirelessly to figure out how we can do these electronic things. And we just have a lot of people that really deserve recognition. Alicia Eggers with the food servers, I think we're serving almost 500 kids now through the grab and go. And so lots and lots of people have stepped up, and we really, the community should be proud.
Absolutely. Well, that takes us to our announcements portion of our meeting. April 14th and April 28th, I believe, are both Tuesdays. The Riverbend Mobile Food Pantry, many of you are aware, comes into our community once a month. We are now doing twice this month, knowing that we have some unique challenges ahead. It will be held at the Muscatine Community School District Administration Center, so on 2900 Mulberry. It will be at 4:30 p.m. and it will be a grab and go model. So similar to what you've done before, if you've stopped at the board office and you've been able to pick up food, you'll still do that. However, no one will be entering the building. We will try and maintain proper social distancing and make sure that we are sending everybody away with a bag or a container of food. There will be more information to follow. Much like everything else in our world right now, things change about every 48 hours. That seems to be the new norm, and it's hard to get used to, but we will make sure that we get information to everyone. Mike, if you're still on, I am going to ask if you are in need of volunteers for that event or if you have it covered.
Actually, Tammy, we do need volunteers in a little bit different way. I'm very appreciative. The Riverbend Pantry, they're going to actually box up the food for us the first time. And so we'll just need help with volunteers as far as handing out the food, as far as when cars pull up. The second time, on the 28th, we actually need volunteers to help box the food as well. So we'll be sending out a sign-up sheet, but that's where we could really use the volunteers, Tammy.
Okay. So again, if we stay tuned, there will be more information coming about specific times and when you need those volunteers.
Yes.
Great. Great. And thank you for your work on organizing that. I know there are a lot of hands in that, but again, I think one of the first conversations that I heard happen when the news was coming through that we would be not having school for a period of time was, how are we going to feed our students? And how do we make sure that they're not going hungry? So that was, and it's fun to see if you're on social media, it's not even just individuals delivering meals and handing them out. I see all kinds of fun costumes and there's a lot of fun things happening. So we appreciate that.
Tammy, could I also interject just really quickly? I'd kind of be remiss if I also didn't thank not only the board, but Jerry for their leadership during this time as well. I know I'm speaking for the staff on this, is that because of your leadership and support, our staff has really felt whole. They have felt like we have their back. And I think also the continuous model we chose has really alleviated a lot of anxiety among parents as well as our staff. I've received a lot of emails from staff saying how appreciative they are that we did choose that model as well. So I know we've recognized a lot of people, but I think we want to also recognize our board and Jerry as well.
Well, and I would put all that back to Jerry because every time we have conversation, it is about what's going to happen next. What will it look like next year? And as much as I don't like it, he's the short timer amongst us, right? But yet still incredibly thoughtful and concerned about what will next year look like. And he's never stopped thinking about the district, the staff, and our students. So I appreciate that a great deal as well. And I know the board does. Our last reminder is May 11th will be the next regular board meeting. It will be scheduled at 7 p.m. We don't know exactly where we'll be. We are currently scheduled to be at City Hall. However, pending on what's going to be happening in the world, we may have another virtual meeting. We will see, but we will make sure that we're publishing that information out as well so that our public knows where they can find us. And our amazing tech crew, Scott, Rich, Lisa, Cory led through a great opportunity to practice, which was extremely helpful because just like our students who are learning a new normal, there are some of us adults that are also learning that new normal. So we appreciate that, and we will make sure so you're able to watch this on our YouTube channel later if you would like. I would just like to say thank you to our parents. I would like to say thank you to our staff and to my peers as well. It has been, I never thought that 30 days could look the way 30 days has looked. And I never thought I would see a time when our governor would see that we need to close schools for a period of time. I never thought I would see that we would have grocery stores reinventing themselves and that we would be purposefully staying away from each other to keep each other healthy and safe. And yet here we are. So for all the creative things that I've seen happen in the district, and we've talked about several of them tonight, but bedtime stories on Facebook, parades that have happened, delivering of food, recreating curriculum to support our students, thinking about the emotional well-being, and our parents who again are trying to also navigate this new normal. We are all in this together, and together we will absolutely come out of this. I wish I knew when that was, but we'll look forward. We will keep working and we will keep pushing ourselves. You heard your board members ask a lot of great questions tonight about how do we increase participation? How do we make it better? What will it look like? And whatever the answer is today, I can almost promise you in 48 hours, it'll be a little bit different answer, but tirelessly, you have folks who will never stop working on that, and we will continue to move forward. So thank you for your patience as we figure out a board meeting like this as well. Are there any other announcements that anyone would like to make prior to adjourning? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Y'all like to leave me hanging on this part, whether we're together, whether it's virtual. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
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 It's been moved and seconded multiple times. I'm going to assume there is no discussion. All those in favor of an adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
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 And the motion carries. Everyone stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.